secret weapons, right. Yeah, it's a great privilege to stand up here once again and hope that you'll decipher my Yank-British combination of English that we've acquired over 30 years we've lived in the United States of America. That's in Georgia. And please y'all come, all come to our conference next April. If you're not on our free magazine, it's called Focus on the Kingdom, and it comes out once a month. Sarah and I put it together, and it's been going for 10 years. And we have a large website at restorationfellowship.org. This is the way you can keep in touch with what your brothers and sisters are doing in some of these simple theological truths like God is one, not three, the kingdom of God is coming, and these fundamental areas of agreement that are represented in this room, despite some differences on the fringe. We have an amazing mixture of Pentecostalism and Christadelphianism, and somewhere in the middle there, I suppose. We're all moving here and there to a better view. I would only urge you, though, to keep searching. Don't imagine that you've got, any of us got it all. I hate to be the father of anything. I don't want to be that old, come on. I want to be the younger brother or something like that. It'd be much more fun. That's a bit shattering. Oh, you're older than I am. That's right. I think I'm the oldest in the room, actually. I really do. I don't like that thought, but we'll forget about that. So I'm just very thrilled with what I've heard these 3 days. Our conference will be the 19th next year, and it's a similar gathering of X's. We're all X's. I'm X-Armstrong, X-CDs, X-CDs, post-CDs, disaffected CDs, and genuine CDs, and on-the-move CDs, and other people. Roman Catholics, we've got lots of ex-Roman Catholics, a variety, a smorgasbord of different theological complexions. So, I'm not very well organized, feeling very guilty because our humorist here, our comedian, who I've invited to do his thing in Atlanta next April, I'm talent spotting, by the way. That's what I'm doing. And the guy here...
Poaching the sheep.
Now, we're not going to steal any sheep, but we just want talent to come over. And the prophecy stuff we heard today is wonderful. Our groups have been doing that stuff, and he did it better and clearer. But we're not unfamiliar with the Messianic March. You know the Messianic March? That you'll probably be gathering for those 45 days out there in the wilderness. The rabbis say the Messiah is going to retire in the wilderness for a short time. 45 days at the end of Daniel. Possibly. And he will constitute the Theocratic kingdom. You're the Theocrats. And he'll introduce you to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all the worthies of the faith. And Jesus will organize you and say, you take charge of those five cities over there. And you'll all be ex-CDs and ex-Armstrongs and ex-Restoration. No, I hope not ex-Restoration Fellowship, but anyway. We'll all be getting together and meeting these amazing people for 45 days. Perhaps the desert will blossom like a rose at that time, perhaps. And then you will march, as did Joshua, I think, into the land, coming east across the west, and take on the Antichrist, something like that. And so the best piece of popular theology may turn out to be they know, everybody knows that one. So there's your bridge to their minds. You say, have you thought about that? And when the saints go marching off to heaven, I don't think so. When they go marching into the land. So the name of the game is to drop the heaven language. Not when I go to heaven, we're all going, no, I'm not going to heaven. And you will challenge your friends by saying, Jane, where are you going to be in the future? And Jane will say, I want to be in heaven. And you say, why would you want to be there, Jane? Because Jesus won't be there. Is it clear? It's silly to go to heaven if Jesus is going to be on the earth. So I believe in the second coming, the parousia that numbers have spoken about. That means that the Messiah is coming back to this earth to stay here, not just to visit. You do the U-turn, not he. He comes down to the clouds. You get caught up to meet the Lord in the air. You do the U-turn, escort the royal visitor down to the earth, which is his place of residence, because the earth was given to man, wasn't it, forever? And paradise will be restored gradually. It's not very difficult, is it? But what I didn't learn in church is huge. Not that I blame anybody, but they didn't know these things. And I'm still learning. So with those sort of conversation stoppers in mind, you can shake the rattle cage of one of those 6 billion people on earth who don't understand this clearly, right? And it's going to be a huge task, because you have to deprogram them. They've somehow been drugged on these issues. They've been mesmerized by their denominational tenets. I mean mesmerized. And to change the mind of somebody entrenched in a view is major surgery. It's difficult. You've got to pray a lot, You've got to be as clever as you can. You've got to do what Steve says, introduce a little humor so you can relax them, just a fraction. And maybe then you'll say something that will spark their mind to say, maybe I need to look at this particular subject. And that's the way it seems to work. And we have been wrong, and are probably still wrong, on every doctrine, right? We had no doctrines, really. So we've had to change our minds on everything, and may still have to change our minds. So change is what it's about. And I think that's what Obama says in America, too. So we're on the right political track, too. So with that in mind, a little bit of humor will do well with the Baptists over there in the States. And I've soon found that if, in giving talks, if I would introduce the idea that Yeshua, the Messiah, actually turned 120 gallons of water into alcohol, I could get fury just like that. I'm not kidding you. I saw heads drop, people shrunk down under their seats, practically. Oh no. The poor guy actually thinks that you can drink moderate alcohol. And I was asked not infrequently to apologize to congregations for saying that. Because on the last day of these meetings I would sometimes say, let's talk about some things that Jews would do, like dancing. And now they do dance in church in America, but it's because they've not been allowed to dance in the ballroom. And so they go to church and they do some of it. Sounds to me like ballroom dancing. I mean, it's very, very rhythmic and very attractive music, but for me that belongs better in the ballroom setting than it does in church, but that's my culture. So I would say to these Baptist people, you know, Jesus did turn 120 gallons of water into wine, which is enos in Greek, yayin in Hebrew, which is alcohol. And then Jesus did the Baptists did an equal miracle. They turned that wine into grape juice. And at least some of these serious people could smile and say, well, maybe I could go away and think about it. But that's the madness of religion. So in church, we're often talking about hot ice cubes, married bachelors, and square circles. And now you have a whole culture out there that is determined to prove that one is really three or more. And they're insulting the lexicons. The scholars, you know, not all idiots, people who write lexicons know something about Hebrew and Greek. They do. Any responsible scholar will tell you the word echad means one. Very easy. But out there on internet land, there's a whole culture trying to convince you that echad means compound one. That's to say, it could mean any number, in fact, really. But they like the word three, and they like the number three. So one is really three. That's easy. Let me trick you here. Evening and morning makes one day. See? One day. One is really two, isn't it? Evening and morning makes one day. Got it? That's two. I like the sucker thing. That's brilliant. I've been with Herbert. I was nodding. 3 times. And Jesus said, keep the 10 commandments. So he did. But I don't think he gave the 10 commandments exactly. So my theology was all wacko in those days. I'd never had a theological thought, seriously, until got a Bible when I was 20, and I've never been the same since. I'm reading from what I see here. It's like a tonic now to read this thing. I read it with better understanding than I did from my C of E days. So that's the sort of background you're working on. And I thought that this little story, since we're doing a bit of humor, might be appropriate. You perhaps know this, but the man is convinced that he's dead. You've heard of the guy who thought he was dead. You know that story? It may be old stuff to you, but anyway, we heard it recently. So his wife takes him to the trick cyclist, or the psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist takes him to a morgue to try to straighten him up, because he thinks he's dead. So they go there and they prick the finger of a corpse. And that corpse bleeds. It doesn't bleed, sorry. The man is convinced he's dead. I've got to get this right. I'm getting it backwards already. This isn't good. My family said I would get it wrong. Okay, so the psychiatrist is going to prove to him that dead people, how's it go? Don't bleed. There we go. Okay, we're only doing a disaster, Steve. I knew I couldn't do this.
Seriously, get out and do it.
Okay, he really should. So you want to come and tell it? Okay, okay, so the guy in the morgue does not bleed, and he's dead, you think. So they go home and they prick the patient's finger, and of course he bleeds. And so the fellow immediately then turns around and says, what do you know? Dead men do bleed. That's the stubbornness with which we will not change our minds easily.